Hello, anyone following my KZ progress? Here's where I'm at. I got my YSS shocks and I put some progressive shocks in the front forks, so everything's modernized in the suspension. And YSS did a pretty good job. These had to be custom built to suit for this wider tire, and I think they did a pretty good job. My biggest problem was chain clearance, and I think they got it. We'll find out when I ride this bike a little bit if the chain flops around and hits anything. I'm hoping it doesn't, but it does have more clearance than the previous set of shocks. But I think they look good, and I know the ones that I had on this bike before that were getting chewed up, they were doing a good job. It really improved the ride a lot. Right now, the bike's just sitting with these primered body panels just as a mock-up. I wanted to see if I was going to like that seat on it instead of the LTD stepped seat. And I think I might like it this way for a while. So what I'm working on today is I was held up on starting this engine because I didn't have the alternator cover matching the rest of the chrome on this bike, so I had to send it off for chroming, and came back, looks pretty good, so it's ready to go on. Once that goes on, I'm gonna give it a shot trying to start it. And while I had it off, the coil had the rubber grommet that keeps the oil from leaking out of that cover. It was in pretty bad shape. This is what I was dealing with before. It was all dry rotted and chewed pretty much like that. It didn't take much to get it off. And then it's got like this steel core in there where the wires poke through. So what I got is some of these solder connectors that you'd see on Instagram. I'm gonna give them a shot. So I got them on there. I didn't video me getting it together because it's a bit of a hassle. These reds are for 18 gauge and they fit on the wires okay, but when you twist those wires together, it's a tight fit to get those back over the splice. So they could have stood to be just a little bit bigger just for slipping them over a twisted pair of wires. It barely makes it. So now I'm ready to heat shrink them and get that solder to melt. And once the connection's made, I can mount that coil back in the cover, get the cover mounted, and I'm nearly ready to try starting this bike. This was an engine swap from a KZ1000 engine, and I took it apart for other issues, and I got into it and found some cracks in the aluminum. So what I did is I got a 900 block. So I got a 900 crank out of the deal, and I put my 1000 cylinders and my head on there and some bigger cams. But I'm really excited to start this thing up and see how it runs and get to tuning it a little bit. I've got the cams degreed and hopefully they're where they want to be. I'm sure I'll have to do some adjusting of the electronic ignition, but like I have to be running before I can do any of that. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to heat shrink those connectors up, and I hope they make good connections, because one of the problems I got here is this wiring harness came on this bike and it's hardwired in there. It's not, there's no connector on this. This just goes right into the main harness loom. And there is no connections, so That's it right there. So, yep, hardwired in, and that's what I'm dealing with. Alright, so I'll show you how it looks when it's completed. Shouldn't take long.